And here we are, another go of the 200 challenge, where the goal is really to make this the fastest 964 it could ever be. So far, we've identified 264 kilos of weight saving on this beauty here, and we have long ways to go before we're really finished. So the initial target of 200 kilos, that's long gone already. So this time around, we're going to do something a little bit more mechanic, hydraulic, and build an all-in-one oil system. Because as you might know, the oil system of the original 964 is a little bit distributed in different parts, and a lot of it is in this area. I want to get all of it in that area, moving the weight forward, moving the weight down, and also allowing for twin coolers. So let's have a look at that. And before we get started, I wanted to give you a little bit of insight how an oil system on one of these air-cooled engines actually works. And it does work really exactly the same as in a water-cooled car. The difference is maybe the sizing of the system, because an air-cooled car in many aspects is actually oil-cooled. So to my help, I have an engine block. The crankshaft typically goes here. You have a drivetrain that goes over here, and it connects to this little shaft here, and this is what drives the oil pump. So this is an original 964 oil pump. It has two stages into it on a common shaft, and these have two separate duties. The first stage is the pressure stage. It is connected on the other side directly to the oil tank, and it provides flow and pressure into everything that needs to be lubricated in the engine, such as the crankshaft, the piston squirters, the camshaft, the drivetrain over here, all these aspects, right? So this is a good guy here. The other guy here is kind of the garbage collector, if you will. Maybe that's a nasty word for this guy. It's the scavenge stage. So the scavenge stage takes all of the oil as it has gone out through the engine and collects in the bottom of the case here, and it pushes that out or sucks that out through this pickup here, and it pushes that back through the filter, through the thermostat, through the cooler, and then back into the oil tank so that it's ready for the pressure stage again, ready and cool, right? This here is a 964 original pump, which only has one pickup stage. If you go to a GT3 pump, or if you go to an Alto Verde pump, like the pump I have in my engine, it actually has two pickup stages, and it's a little bit longer, the pump. So this one has a pickup stage here, and then it has a pickup stage over here. So when you get into a heavy brake and all of the engine oil kind of moves up over here, you still scavenge this out, making sure that the engine case is always clear out of oil that otherwise would steal horsepower from you. And you also want to make sure you have an excess of scavenge capacity here, because really you would like to have a little bit of a negative pressure in here if you could, because it's good for horsepower. Okay, let's have a look at what's behind this one and this one on the car side. So then, looking at how the oil actually comes into the engine, we need to figure out how to get the oil from here into this little port here. This is the port where it actually goes into the pressure stage of the pump. So this oil tank here is a very complicated animal and has lots of ports in and out, and is definitely a offspring of many years of development, testing different things, figuring out exactly how it needs to work. We have, for example, the communication ports to the crankcase ventilation and to the intake. We have one port that goes to the engine, then we have one that goes to the filler. We have one that is the return coming from the thermostat, and then we have one that is when you want to drain the oil from the tank. So this one here sits here. It's made out of sheet metal. It's pretty heavy. That one is then connected. The pipe that goes on the inside here, you'll see it whenever you change tires, and it goes through another pipe and another hose into this port here, which is where the engine oil actually comes into the engine and into the pressure stage of the pump. Let's have a look at the oil return side, the scavenge side, if you will. So at the bottom of the case, you have the outlet pipe here that comes and is connected to the oil pump. It goes up through this pipe here that is really going under and between the exhaust. And it goes up to the filter console here, where it then continues on through a pipe that unfortunately I don't have anymore here, but it goes from there into the thermostat housing here, which is mysteriously floating in thin air there. This pipe here has a tendency to leak. Ask me how I know that. And this thermostat housing then sits just under the tank over here on the car. And then you have the return back to the tank here. You have the thermostat that is in here. And then you have the two connecting points to the cooler that goes to the front of the car. So as you can see, there's quite a few components to this oil system here, and they are distributed in very many places across the car. So that of course makes it more leak prone and more complicated, and in the end, yeah, I think it's going to give you a little bit more weight. So we got the filter housing there, we got the thermostat housing, we got the oil tank that just sits above this here, we got some filler pipes, various things here and there. I want to find a way to really consolidate all of these components into one component to make it as slick as possible and really follow the theme that I have with my car, with really consolidating and simplifying as much as I possibly can. At the same time as I'm doing this, I want to move the oil tank all the way to the front, because it does have an impact on weight distribution if you do take a weight like the oil tank and those components and permanently move it to the front. So that's going to be something we're going to look at as well. So all-in-one oil tank, what do I mean with that? So all-in-one, what does that even mean? So really what I want to do here is I want to have this component, this component, this component, and this component, which is the new tank. I want all of that to be integrated in one component. So I literally have one hose to the engine, then one back, really minimize all the pressure losses and really build a system that is as lean as possible. So what this is a Mokel dry sump tank, capacity somewhere around 14 liters. However, you never use the full volume because you want to have a very large portion of this just as air. Important part of the concept of these dry sump tanks is how you get the air out from the oil, because you don't want air into the oil because it grows in volume, then it splashes over and you get all kinds of issues, as well as oil doesn't work exactly as oil is intended when it's full of air. So one aspect of that is that the return back into the tank here comes in at an angle so that it swirls around and it actually beats the air out of the oil. It also has a special design for the outlet. This is the outlet for air. This goes either to a catch tank or it goes back into the engine intake. Here's for the crankcase ventilation, and here's the outlet back to the engine as well as a drain plug. Really cool, really neat welding here. They've done a good job with that. If I open this guy up, you can see that the inlet there to the tank comes in at an angle. You can see that there's a special design of the outlet to the catch tank that actually goes down to the bottom of the tank here to de-air the whole system. And there's a baffle system in here, how the oil actually gets from the top where it comes in, and then how it labyrinths its way down to the bottom where it can go out to the engine again. So there's more to it than what beats the eye here. And really nice fabrication work from Mokel on this. Okay, so as you start analyzing the components that all of them need to become part of this guy here, you'll find the thermostat housing here, which has the actual thermostat in it. So the thermostat has a little pick here on the top, which is what extends and grows as this one gets hot, and that pushes the thermostat down so that these ports here change location inside the housing and reroute the oil so that it goes past the coolers before it comes back to the engine. And you got a little bit of return spring there to get it back. You have a pressure relief valve in there so that you don't get into trouble. And all of that needs to go on top of here together with the filter housing. So what I came up with in my first instance is something that looks like this. This one would, together with a 993 filter, sit exactly like that. And the concept is that the oil comes from the engine and it goes in here. So this is the return from the scavenge side. It goes through the filter, then it goes into the actual thermostat housing in the middle. This is the outlet. So there's two outlets to the coolers, and then there's two returns for the coolers. And as all of this is happy, it's going to go into this hole here, which is a hole there that goes into the tank. So that's the concept. That's the first iteration that I did. So I was really happy when I printed this one and said, you know what, I cracked it. I had my first attempt, managed to design something that is really cool here. The issue I found when I took this and put it into the 3D model of the car, which I now scanned in one of my previous episodes, let's look at how that actually turned out. And I'm back in the home office. So remember one of the previous episodes, we 3D scanned the entire car. And that really comes in handy when you do one of these things, because doing it in a CAD environment like this is so much easier and you can really see that everything fits. And then you go down and you save tons of time with this. So what you can see here is I've drawn in the tank. This is the frunk of the car, and the tank goes here. With this tank location, it will sit a little bit higher than the original tank, so I will get a little bit more head on the tank, and that's good because the distance is just a little bit longer. And this is how the unit is going to look now. In the first iteration, I had two of the oil cooler ports facing in this direction towards the front, and that would mean that the hoses would have to go this way and over here to go to the secondary cooler. So what I've done now is I've changed the hoses so that they really go in this direction, so I can pull all the hoses behind the tank. So when you look from the front of the car, it really looks neat and really integrated, and you'll have a minimal amount of clutter. We'll also have the separation plate in between here, the one that separates this part of the frunk here from the back part of the frunk, and the cables or the hoses are going to go neatly next to that one and really stick out a minimal amount, and it will look really clean. So I'm putting this one to print so that I can have kind of a final mock-up before I send this one for machining. Meaning that what's left is just validating that that works, that everything fits, punch the hole through the tank, and then find a way to fit this tank into the car. So I got this one printed now, a final mock-up. It took 16 hours to get this one done. So this is one of these tasks that just takes a very long time. And here we go. Here is the final mock-up now. It goes snug to the unit like this. This is actually iteration 3. I have another one that sits here that didn't turn out so well. The oil will come from the engine and into this port here. It will go down through the filter and then back up through the middle. And as it comes up through the middle, it comes into the thermostat housing. And when the car is cold, the oil will go straight up and then in through this port into the tank at an angle and then swirl around. As the oil gets hotter, this and this port will open up. So then the oil will come up through the middle, it will go out through the two coolers and then come back from the coolers in the top and then back in through this port here. Also add a little bit of an O-ring groove here. So that's the means of tightening this one towards the tank, and then two assembly bolt holes there. So I will need to punch a hole through the tank here to get this one to actually attach to the tank, and I'll need to manufacture this one out of aluminum. So this is a pretty complex part, as you can see. There's going to be quite some 3D milling on this to get it down to a little bit sub 500 grams that this one is right now. I do have a lot of good help from this. If you remember the episode Speedy Intake, where I applied a similar process with the intake runners for my new manifold, I designed these, I made them fit perfectly. Then I worked with Frederick from Aximec and we came up with this, which is a beautiful piece that fits perfectly into my intake and is something that I'm going to update you on a little bit later. So I have this now. This now faces towards the back of the car. So I have the port towards the engine is down on the bottom. The oil comes back and it goes in here. Everything happens on the inside, so it's really neatly integrated. Now I need to figure out how to get this tank into the car and assemble it in there and then do up the hoses. And in the true spirit of making my life easy, I am just, for the sake of making a mock-up, going to use this area here and just clamp the tank around this so that I can see how it looks. Later on, I'm going to make a proper bracket here and a proper bracket here so I can put at least 2 pipe clamps on top of each other and make the tank installation very sturdy. Let's put it in just using this very basic method. And I have just attached the filter unit to it using a strap, and I'm going to see if I can get this together here. It's not very easy without help. This is an extremely crude mock-up, I know that, but you know, seeing it in real life as opposed to the CAD models, it really means so much, and you really get a feeling for how it's going to work in the end. So this is what we got right now. In the end, I'm going to fabricate a proper bracket there and something towards the back so that it sits here and it sits here. I've just strapped this one and taped that one right now. But the concept, I think, works really well. I will be cutting off and then welding this shut, the old intake there. And you can see down there that the outlet towards the engine is there. And what I'm going to do, as I'm thinking right now, is I'm going to pull 2 hoses in through the hole in the back there and bring it out to this cooler here, and the other 2 in through that hole over there and bring it out there, so that the 2 coolers are really running in parallel as opposed to serial, really having the least amount of resistance. And I hope that's going to go really well. Another aspect of this that I need to figure out is the outlet here. This is for the outlet gases. This needs to go somewhere, and that's going to go into this. This is a catch tank. This one comes from Nuke Performance. So that one collects the gases that comes out from the tank, and then it's a filter on the outside. So if there's a lot of havoc and a lot of splashing going on in this one, then that ends up in the catch tank. You can empty the catch tank and make sure it doesn't spill to the outside. When you have a very lively pump like I have with the Autoverdi pump, it does help you to empty out the casing completely all the time, and even pull a little bit of vacuum in the casing to give you some more horsepower. But it really moves the oil. It really moves the oil, and I saw that last year. So this is going to help me with this. So let's get going and get a benchmark on the weight of the old system versus the new system. We haven't done up the piping yet, but let's just take the core components as a start here. The original tank with filter console, with thermostat, all of the core components weighing in at 6.5 kilos, quite a lot. And it's located just here or backwards, so it's all in the wrong place if you want to move weight forward. Have the runner-up weighing in at 2.8 with filter console, thermostat, all these goodies. We do have some pipe couplings that we need to add. These are nothing. We do need to compensate for that this is plastic, and in the end it's going to be made out of aluminum. It's going to weigh 500 grams though. So I'm going to cut this at 3.5, saying that we've saved 3 kilos just on the components, not considering hoses. Then, of course, we have all the hoses and piping that are not small pieces in the original 964 setup. I'm not going to weigh those today. I'm going to show you what I'm going to use though. I'm going to use an AN20 nylon breaded hose that does up to 35 bars for the engine inlet. That's bigger than the original. It's bigger than what my friend uses with his Mokel tank, which is an AN16. So I'm upping it a little bit just to be on the safe side. The other hose, which is a pressurized hose, that's going to be an AN16. So all in all, it's going to be lighter. I don't know exactly how much. On the other hand, I'm going to add another cooler. And I think that's where we're going to call it a day today. We did get pretty far. We have all-in-one unit here standing in front of me, and it is pretty integrated, I have to say that. We still have the hoses to do up. We still have the secondary cooler to do up, so I want to do that all together. Purpose of this was really to design something really cool, which I think we did, and also to move weight forward. This move alone is worth something about 1 to 1.5% in weight distribution. That's not bad. The other aspect of this is I've really taken care as I've designed these pieces, and also eliminating the number of hoses to get pressure losses down. And in the end, that is something that the engine has to push, and in the end, that's something that takes power off of the engine. How much that is, very difficult to say. We did go from a lot of distributed parts to this. We did go through a few iterations, and some of them didn't work out. That's, I guess, the iterations of designing something. I have a lot of work with calculating pressure losses and so on, so I'm going to do up that in a next episode to make sure really I'm on the safe side when it comes to hose sizing, because it is tricky with a suction hose that has some length. I know that from my normal work and the work we do there. Next time around, we're going to do up the hoses. We're going to do up the secondary cooler, really complete this project. I hope I can get this done. It takes a little bit of time machining these things. It is really fun doing this kind of development. I really enjoy that, and it's something that is very close to my heart. So if you want to see the second part of this, subscribe to my channel. If not, like my episode, something of the sort, and I'll see you next time.